Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Flourish podcast with Dr. Toni Engram, where you will hear straight from some of the best practitioners and leaders in wellness on how to take control of your family's physical, spiritual, and mental health, because we are all designed to flourish. As a reminder, this show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the Flourish podcast should be taken as medical advice. For your own specific medical advice, please always consult with your own healthcare providers. Now, on today's show, I am so thrilled to introduce to you Dr. Leila Doolittle. Dr. Doolittle is a doctor of chiropractic with a specialty in functional medicine and integrative neurology. She has a passion for helping her patients achieve optimal health and well-being through the root cause of all symptoms. With over 10 years of experience in the field, Dr. Doolittle has developed a unique approach to healthcare that combines traditional healthcare with a holistic, functional approach. She is committed to helping her patients achieve true health through a combination of functional medicine and nutrition, lifestyle changes, and spiritual alignment. She works closely with her patients to develop a personalized wellness journey that allows each patient to explore and embody their soul's purpose and radiate love and life. And goodness, I know that you will see, as soon as you see her and listen to her, that she radiates love and light. She is, quite honestly, one of the nicest people that I've ever met, just a beautiful soul inside and out. And I am so glad that you get to hear our conversation today. So enjoy the show, guys. All right, everybody, I want you to welcome Dr. Doolittle to the show. Dr. Doolittle, it's so good to have you here. I'm so excited we're finally doing this.
Yes, I am too.
Okay, well, Dr. Doolittle, if you would you share a little bit about how you got started in functional medicine and functional neurology?
Yes, absolutely. It is a huge passion of mine, and it was because of my own health journey. As many of us in this practitioner functional realm, we've had many health concerns that have inspired us. And so for me, it started when I was 13 with mold. We moved into a house that had black mold, and because of the toxins that affect my immune system and the cascade of dysbiosis and all of the other concerns that followed, that led me to questioning and coming up with solutions for myself throughout my own journey into the pre-med field. And in functional neurology, that was my inspiration from a traumatic brain injury that happened when I was 16 from a car accident. And so it was just a few different layers that really guided my journey as a practitioner. I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help other people in a situation similar to mine that had so many questions without the answers. And so that was what led me down this field. So throughout many different certification programs and diplomates of functional medicine and neurology, I was able to create this type of field in this collaborative space. And I also use a big foundation in bioenergetics and bioharmonics and a few other things like that. So it's been a beautiful journey.
Very cool. Oh, and I want to talk about all of them. I want to talk about all your fun tools that you have. But let's start with functional neurology. So can you describe for us what exactly is functional neurology, if I can even say it right?
Yes, functional neurology is a study where we are working on neurological connections. The neuroplasticity between neurons is what we're attempting to optimize through exercises, therapies, and different types of treatment protocols where we can encourage the brain to communicate better from different neurons, from neuronal pools, or what we call it when it's a conglomeration of different neurons, and the communication between different lobes of the brain that handle specific functions. We're able to stimulate these to create more harmony within the brain and optimize the brain function.
So what would that pretend I'm a kindergartner? what would that, or maybe not a kindergartner, pretend I'm a fifth grader.
Yes.
What would that look like if someone needs some help in
Mhm.
their functional neurology?
Yeah, love it. Well, we would do an assessment, very comprehensive evaluation, and the functional neurology examination puts them through a series of different types of functions that we're examining to determine how well these parts of the brain are working. So the journey starts with us just mapping how the functions are, what they look like for the brain, and coming up with solutions for which areas we can tweak, which areas we can optimize, which ones we can connect in a better way. And we want to help stimulate the communication in these pathways. And it can be eye exercises, it could be balance exercises, it could be different types of therapies where we are having them do processing, word processing, and like language types of patterns. And they may even add in a few different layers for brain function from a cranial nerve stimulation. And cranial nerve stimulation, it could be trigeminal nerve stimulation, sensory function to the face, could be cranial nerve function from a cerebellar aspect, that's the part of the brain that controls the connection, communication, and coordination. And so it might be just finger to nose type of movement, or catching a ball and moving in certain ways and balancing on one leg. And all of those different functions that we see in the exam can help us determine how we put together the series of therapies and exercises to balance those.
So it sounds like the aim is for optimal health and wellness as a whole. But
Yes.
if during your examination and during your assessment process, if you see that there's something neurological that is not optimal, then you can target those areas that are not optimal and reach a better outcome. Am
Yes,
I kind of
that's a
understanding that?
perfect summary.
Okay, awesome. And do you see this impacted by any oral health conditions or oral health markers?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Especially like I was mentioning, the trigeminal nerve. This is a very important cranial nerve 5, and that's the nerve that innervates the face. We have 3 different branches for the trigeminal nerve. One branch goes to the forehead, one branch up here, this maxilla or this cheekbone area, and then the other one to the jawline and the mandible. And so what's important about these cranial nerves are when any cranial nerve is stimulating into the brain. But specifically, the cranial nerve 5 on the right and the left, it's stimulating into the area of the brainstem, which helps to balance the parasympathetic function in the sympathetics. And what that means is the rest, digest, regenerate. That's more parasympathetic. Sympathetic is more fight, flight, freeze, stress out mode. And so we have to find that proper balance for harmony and function throughout all of the organ systems, throughout our immune system, throughout our glands and the communication signals, our hormones. Everything is balanced through the type of function and balancing effect that happens from those regions in the brainstem. So when we think about it with oral health, anything that's inflaming those nerves could impact the entire system. And this could have a huge impact on the brain and all the distal types of functions from that.
Everything else that's
Yes.
either that determines parasympathetic versus sympathetic.
Yes,
Awesome.
exactly.
And it sounds like you're going beyond just trigeminal neuralgia, which
Yes.
is, the diagnosis of a poor pain response or
Yeah.
an overactive pain response in the trigeminal nerve. You're talking about the actual function of the nerve itself and how the inflammation can impact that downstream neurologically, right?
That's right. Exactly.
So, do you see where, and this is fascinating to me because when I think inflammation, I'm thinking cardiovascular health.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, if when I'm really feeling fancy, I think lymphatic system and
Yes.
fascia. But I don't know that my brain goes to the neurology and how that could be impacting their neurological responses too.
Mhm.
So I wonder, and this is just totally me brainstorming,
Mhm.
do you see any correlations with, and now I'm going to start noticing too, do you see any correlations with or inflammatory responses in the mouth, like maybe tooth decay, gum disease, something like that, and where all of a sudden they get their mouth healthy, they get the needed dental treatments done, and they have an improved response with your work in your office?
Absolutely. It is correlated nearly 100% of the time that this is the most important start to balancing the rest of the system. Whenever we think about the oral health and how important it is for the microbiome and the health to have the proper balance effect and that correlation and that communication and how much that controls our own epigenetic expression. It's far reaching and it's a cascade effect, and absolutely it starts with the mouth.
Awesome. Now you're speaking my love language. And tell me a bit about what you see as the gut oral brain axis. Is that a thing? And what does that mean to you?
Yes, it definitely is a thing. And the gut oral brain axis, whenever we think about that, it's just referencing each of these parts that are connected. It's just these areas where whenever one is imbalanced, then it's going to have a ripple effect and cascade on the rest of them. So if we think about the oral and the gut, that's very easy for us to imagine and visualize because that's the gastrointestinal tract. It starts with the mouth. Whatever is happening within our own saliva, whatever our own signaling system here is having a ripple effect on, it's going to be swallowed and it's going to go into our GI tract. Now, the other portion of that and the connection between that is through the vagus nerve. That's one of the areas, it's called the wandering nerve. This is cranial nerve 10. And that vagus nerve is like an elevator shaft that whatever is going on, whatever is dysfunctioning within the gut can absolutely have an impact on the brain. And that's that gut-brain axis now. And whenever we think about that ripple effect, whatever happens in the mouth is happening in the gut, and then it's happening through that vagus nerve all the way into the brain. Now we have all of these inflammatory types of patterns that can just continue to influence every system. And with the vagus nerve in particular, that's what helps to control the peristalsis. This is the movement that happens within the gut. Like you've heard or even felt maybe that rumbling in your tummy. You feel like things are moving around. If you're eating a big meal and you're digesting, you feel it. Like you have to just allow that peristalsis a chance to really digest and break down the foods. Well, that good, healthy movement is what helps us to absorb our nutrients and to create the foundational elements for so many communication signals for our system to be healthy. And whenever we have vagus nerve imbalances or inflammation, or we have a microbial change, meaning like the bacteria that's in the mouth, the probiotics that are in the mouth are imbalanced because there was some bad bacteria that overgrew from dental issues, then that's where that cascade happens and we don't have as much peristalsis if the vagus nerve is inflamed from that. And then we have a difficult time breaking down our foods. Now we're having problems with absorbing. Now we're nutrient deficient and we're taking all these vitamins and multivitamins trying to give ourselves the nutrients that we should just be getting from our food.
So do you ever see it do you see it happen in the reverse, where issues with neurology, maybe it's starting with the vagus nerve, maybe it's starting somewhere else? Do you see that impacting the gut and the mouth and going that direction?
Yes, definitely. Yes, with the brain, whenever we have any neurological issues, potentially from a traumatic brain injury, or it could be an issue with mold or mycotoxins or inflammation from biotoxins. Biotoxins meaning living type toxins that it could be bacteria, parasites, it could be imbalances in candida, overgrowth of fungal issues and aspergillus and some other things like that. And then we know that there's an imbalance potentially even from viruses, dormant viruses that stay dormant in the neurological system or in nerves. And whenever we have many of these different types of biotoxin inflammation patterns, then that can affect function of the brain. And the other aspect would be stress. and emotions. And we know that that's one of the most harmful of the effects because that's the one that it's more difficult to heal from until we go deeper and do the work emotionally and mentally and, on a spiritual level. And so those are the three patterns of what can affect the brain to begin with. And then, of course, the connections and the correlations from there. And then that oftentimes the way we see the signals changing, it's through vagus nerve type of response or through an imbalance in the sympathetics and parasympathetics. And then the cascade happens the opposite way, where now we don't have the healthy peristalsis breaking down the foods start putrefying or just, decaying in our gut because they just hang out in our colon instead of passing like they should, instead of having good, healthy bowel movements regularly. And then that creates an imbalance in the biotoxic burden that's in the gut now. So it could be some of that bad bacteria that just starts to overgrow, or we start getting more biofilm that's coating the lining of the gastrointestinal tract in the colon. And that harbors and hides so many other toxins, not just biotoxins, it's also environmental toxins. It's just surrounding us in our world around us. So we have to get rid of it all.
So if you had to guess, what percentage of your patients' functional issues are emotional, spiritual, mental, versus what percentage are physiological?
Well, I think that there is almost always a component to every single case of some sort of emotional, mental, like trauma or balance or difficulty or stress. And I like to stay away from the word trauma because oftentimes that is a word where it seems like we only categorize certain things into that. And I think it's more of just like whenever it's a stressor in general, then that's what leads to less resilience. And our system knows what to do for detoxification as long as it's set up for success in that and has the right tools in place, meaning it's the drainage pathways are able to detox out. So this could be moving the colon, we're having proper bowel movements. This could be our kidneys flushing out toxins through urine and getting rid of those. Our lymphatic system, flushing and pumping the fluid around our body to get rid of it through sweat glands and through the rest of the detox systems. And our body should get rid of our environmental toxins that we are subjected to that are around us in the world, or our immune system should protect us against the biotoxins being imbalanced. But oftentimes what leads to less resilience against those imbalances, it's a stressor. And that's what sets us up for having a more difficult time maintaining that proper balance within our system. So I believe I wouldn't say 100% of the time because there may be someone that comes in meditating and like creating space and through breath work and really just grounding and going out in nature and getting the sun exposure that they need, like really truly doing all of the foundational elements, eating a perfectly clean diet and doing what they need to do to optimize wellness to the best of their ability. And it oftentimes is just like that little stressor that could be just influence from anything in our environment, and it may not be in our control. And so I think that it's probably 99% of the time, except for that one random person that has all the time in the world to dedicate to perfect optimal wellness.
One outlier.
Unicorn.
Yes. Now tell me a little bit about neurodegenerative diseases. Do you see a lot of those in your practice, either early stage or well into the disease process? And how do you work with those people who exhibit symptoms of those conditions?
Yes, I do. I get quite a few referrals of very complex cases that are sent to me. And so I would say I have had like in the stage 2 and 3 neurodegeneration referrals of Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, ALS, like the list goes on of all the neurodegeneration, and we do see them. I oftentimes though have people that come in their mid 30s and 40s, and we are actually working on preventing it. That's our sweet spot where we really love to work because it's so much easier to prevent than it is to reverse. And especially whenever we're dealing with these big diagnoses, whenever there's some sort of epigenetic factor, some family history, and people think that family history or genetics means that they're going to be set up for failure on this track and they just have to get it. But that's not true. It's the lifestyle that we can optimize their lifestyle to prevent them from getting those diagnoses. So I would say probably about 15% of my total patient database they already have some sort of complex diagnoses that we are trying to reverse and we're working on. And then the other 85%, we are able to work in wellness and work on prevention and keep them healthy and keep them as optimized as possible.
How would you categorize the, I think in that sweet spot demographic, the people in their 30s and 40s, you're not hearing about early dementia or early Alzheimer's yet, but you hear a lot about brain fog.
Yeah.
So do you see it if someone has brain fog, whether it's from mold or autoimmune conditions or whatever the case may be, is brain fog like a stepping stone into dementia and potentially Alzheimer's down the road, or is it a completely separate thing?
It's a concern that we want to put as a red flag because yes, if we continue down that track and ignore this little symptom that the body is raising, they're trying to communicate to us that something's wrong, then it definitely could be correlated with some of those types of diagnoses, whichever one is most associated with whatever toxins are already in the system, whatever their epigenetics are already like, that could be correlated. I would say the thing about brain fog is that there is some sort of inflammatory issue within the brain, and any inflammation can be detrimental to neurological function. And the thing about the brain is that we can create neural connections with neuroplasticity and the exercises. However, whenever you actually lose like a nerve, whenever like these specific little neurons themselves are so deteriorated or dilapidated or degenerated that we lose some of those communication signals, then that's where they die off and we can't just regenerate and regrow a brand new neuron there. The nerves themselves, like say, whenever they're extended out from the spine, we have nerves that go down to our hands or down to our legs and they travel through the body. Those are the nerves where we can regenerate them, regrow them, and heal them if there's been a trauma, like some injury to them. But it takes years to regrow those nerves. And so it's so important that we are protecting the nervous system from the beginning, just listening to those tiny little signals like brain fog, where the body is raising a red flag and it's asking for help. And I always use a reference. If your body is whispering signs and symptoms to you through symptoms that it's saying, hey, look, if you don't take care of this soon, then it's going to turn much, much stronger of a signal, then truly it'll start yelling. So if we don't actually take care of it. So that's whenever we have big diagnoses, disorders, dysfunctions, and diseases that then occur. So let's listen to it while it's a quiet whisper.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know if there's an inflammatory component at all, then that's where I get really excited about research finally catching up and saying, okay, if there's an inflammatory component to these diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia, then we need to look at the inflammatory process that happens in the mouth.
Yes.
And so do you see that as well? Do you see where these inflammatory markers in the mouth can at least contribute to, if not just outright cause, some of these actual conditions that just ruin families?
Definitely. It's incredible the statistics at this point, now that there is enough data and enough research into it. It is amazing how correlated it is with so many big diagnoses. And I do think that it's extremely correlated to the point that it's one of the first questions that I ask on my intake form for any new patient. And I always send them to you because you're the best of all the biological dentists. Truly, I believe that. That's why you're my dentist as well.
Thank you.
And it is so important that we have that taken care of as a foundation. Like before I give them a huge food plan that I want them to follow, or a big supplement plan, or any guides, or any just direction in their life whatsoever, I want to make sure that we've laid the foundation with a blank slate, and it starts first with the mouth. And then we can start working on the gastrointestinal tract, and then secondary to that is going to be the brain function. But it has to start first in the primary area that's inflammatory to the rest of the system.
Really agree.
Mhm.
Now, so we know that the inflammatory process, that's absolutely connected. That's well documented in the literature.
Yes.
Now let's go into something that is less documented, much more controversial. And we may even have to go back and be careful how we edit this. So speak freely.
I
But
will.
but what impacts do you see on certain heavy metals have on brain function and functional neurology, these neurodegenerative diseases?
Yeah.
What impacts do you see with our exposure to heavy metals like mercury, fillings that we've been putting in people's mouths for years and years? Do you see an impact in that way?
Yes, that one's, I could say 100%. Absolutely. It is so correlated, so connected. And I have so many cases that are just heartbreaking how much of a correlation we know it's directly to amalgam mercury fillings. I will share one that's the closest, nearest, dearest to my heart. And it was my mom, actually. She's my best friend in the world. We are so close. And I was going through school, and I had just finished my pre-med program, and I was learning about amalgams and mercury and how important it is to get these out of the mouth. I was already in the functional realm, so I was studying into it, and I realized this was a huge concern for her health. I called her up. She just immediately booked with a dentist in her town. She lives in a very small town in Arkansas, and so she didn't have a biological dentist to go see. And I really didn't, at this point in my journey into the functional world, didn't know that there was a big difference between biological dentistry and the way that the removal happens in a regular dentist's office, or conventional dentist's office, the Western medicine's office. And she got on the schedule, started getting her amalgams removed, and they hadn't dammed properly. They hadn't like protected the way that they were pulling it out. And one of the fillings, they dropped it, and it went down the back of her throat. She swallowed it. She gagged, like swallowed it, couldn't get it up before it went all the way down. And the dental hygienist made this like very cold remark, just like, "Oh, one down the hatch." No joke. It was wild how fast her entire health just dropped. It was like the bottom just like got ripped out from under her. And she was relatively healthy, mostly healthy, just had a few gut issues and some other things going on. She ate very well. Obviously, we grew up in a very functional, natural type of lifestyle before that. And right after that, it was just every system of her body just broke. And I felt so much sadness and responsibility over that, because I was so excited to have her get them out. And I realized this is the most crucial thing that I can speak on and have this mission and this purpose and this message to make sure that people go to a biological dentist to get these amalgams out, because then all the right procedures are done to prevent that. And as long as we are getting them out of the system, then yes, the body can recover, it can regenerate. But the whole philosophy of, well, sometimes they aren't actually leaching that much, just leave them in. It's better to just leave them alone rather than removing them, like that is something that I believe the philosophy of just leaving something severely toxic in our bodies, just because like the top part has worn down so much that it's not leaching as much anymore. And I know we can measure that and see. I believe let's get it out and let the body get back to as foundational and as natural as possible to heal. So I will say after almost 6 years, she's almost made a recovery back to the level that her health was before. it has been the most difficult of really most of my cases because of how much mercury she swallowed in that moment, and the 48 hours that it took to pass, or however long it took to get out of her system. It just so much absorbed throughout her body. And we've done big changes to her health throughout the years. She's been like who I've learned on throughout like kind of the most difficult types of her journey, and the ways that she was set up for less resilience against so many other things because she had such a huge portion of her toxic burden bucket filled with that mercury.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that story. It's going to be so impactful for so many of our listeners. So thank you. Thank you. And I'm so, so sorry that your mom had to go through that.
Yeah.
But, you know, our mess becomes our message. And
Yes.
we clearly have a message now because of it. And I know you, and I can say with 100% enthusiasm and certainty that when your intentions are pure, that God knows that and God works with that. So as your intentions have always been pure with your mama, he works to heal that also. So
Thank you.
and yes, I think of all of the amalgam that I've placed myself because I was required to in school, the amalgam that I removed myself unsafely just because I didn't know what I didn't know. It, you know, when you know better, you do better.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes us a while, but
it does.
we do the best we can.
Yes, that's right. I'm so glad to be working on this with you because I know it's a safe way. And it's so beautiful to know that and to trust, because my patients are like my family. I absolutely love and adore them so much, so deeply. And it is so important to me that anyone that is on their wellness team is able to provide them with the safest and the best care. And your care is so beautiful to get to walk this journey with you.
Yeah. Thank you. That's what we pray for every day, that we can do absolutely what's best for our patients.
Yes.
Okay. Let's lighten it up a little bit.
Yes.
Okay, where do we want to go next? Let's talk. How about some Eastern medicine fun stuff? We haven't talked about meridians yet, and I know that I use it a little bit in my practice just because I know that teeth are connected to certain energetic pathways.
Yes.
This is much more your realm than it is mine. So tell me just a little bit about meridians. What are they? What do they have to do with neurology? And do you see mouth correlations there too?
Definitely. Yeah, so this is in that traditional Chinese medicine aspect of my functional practice. And whenever I was going through traditional Chinese medicine training and through acupuncture training, this is where I learned about how the connections and the correlations of the energy, the qi in the body, this is what is communicating this energy to so many different organ systems. So we have channels of energy that's flowing, very similar to how we have the blood vessels that flow blood around our body, or the lymphatic vessels that take and carry the lymphatic fluid, which helps to move the toxins and to clear them from the body. Or we have the cerebral spinal fluid that pumps up and down and around the brain and then down the spinal cord. And that's what helps to bring nutrients and also detoxify the brain. So it brings nutrients into the nervous system and then detoxifies the brain and releases it. Well, qi and the meridians are like those types of vessels, but it's vessels that allow for the energetic movement, and that energy flow is what helps to send signals of the optimization of function. So it's not just through like the neurological patterns of the nerves that communicate to specific organs. It's really the chi is the vitalistic energy, is how they reference it. And this vitalistic energy, whenever this is aligned and whenever it's set in a proper type of level of flow, whenever it's not too intense, like hyper intensity or hypo intensity on the levels, then it's in the right balance. And that's whenever the energy is able to allow for the organs to do their proper function best. And so we have these meridians that are flowing throughout the entire body. And if you look at like an acupuncture meridian map online, then you'll see so many different channels going to all these different places. One area that they all go through is the dental health. Like right through each of the teeth, we have a specific correlation with the meridians that are linked to organs. And it's linked to organs because in traditional Chinese medicine, it's been mapped for thousands of years that there are specific functions where it handles a correlation for sinuses or kidneys or liver or the stomach, and they'll map specifically which organs are a part of which type of dental line. And so what I often do is I'll for sure in my examination process, I'm checking the mouth, and that's my chance to see if they have any amalgams. First step before I do anything on their treatment plan is come see you. And then also, that gives me a chance to see how the gums are and make sure that everything's healthy. I do a lot of tongue analysis so we can see if there's scalloping on the tongue, meaning like little areas that are undulated. That could be, it could indicate a few different things. Fissures, cracks on the tongues, whiteness on the tongue, like all of these things mean something. Whenever we see that this is correlated with specific issues that could be happening in the body, then we're able to map that there is a change in the chi, an alteration in the chi function, and we want to either optimize like by bringing that up or by dampening that down, reducing it down. And that's how we find that harmony. Well, with the teeth, we also see whichever teeth are affected the most, then that's where we will often see issues with the rest of the organs until we fix that particular tooth.
Are you measuring that somehow, that one tooth is more impacted than the others?
No way of measuring it on my end. I send them directly to you.
Okay. I thought maybe you had some new cool tool that I just didn't know about yet.
I would love that. Usually it's just I can see fillings like whenever I'm doing my exam because I'm already looking at the tongue and the gums anyway. And I do for the functional neurology portion of the exam, I watch the uvular rise. So we can see how the back of the throat, it like raises. And if one side raises more than the other, then that's associated with like cerebellum and more immune system issues, some coordination problems and things like that. But with the dental health, usually I'm close enough. I can smell the breath, and that's my first indication of oral health. And if there is a change in the breath and the way that that smells, then that's very easy for me to have that conversation from there. And then also I can see from their gums, like just the yellowing of the gums, or if they're nice, healthy pink. And then we can see through like periodontal disease, oftentimes we'll have like the gum recession. And so sometimes whenever I see the receding gums, then we'll have conversations around that. In my intake form, I also ask if they get bleeding with their gums whenever they floss. If they're flossing, I also check to see if they're flossing once or twice a day. And if they're not flossing at all, then we obviously know that there's going to be an issue. And so, yeah, it's important that that's the foundation element. And then I send them your way for all the testing, and especially for that cone beam scan testing and everything that you do.
Yes, we love the cone beam. So these meridians, are they, when we talk about energetic flow and vital energy, it's not like a blood vessel or lymphatics or nerves. You can't see the meridians, right?
That's right. We can't see
them. So I wonder how the Chinese came up with this, for one.
Yeah.
How did they intuitively know? But is there actual electricity in the energy, or is the electricity all just within the nervous system? and within the
Yes.
nerves.
I do have a specific tool that I measure the acupuncture points with and the meridian channels. And it's a specific device, a Pointer XL2 is the name of this device. And what it does is it will tell me a measurement on the frequency. So we can see when it's amplified and it's putting out a really high positive charge versus like a negative charge. We'll measure the negative versus the positive polarization, and then we'll see the actual number that it gives us in the readout. We can see if something's amplified and it's putting out too much energy and it's too excitatory, then that's where it's like an energy imbalance that makes less energy be available for the other systems. So we create that proper balance through acupuncture. We'll use electrical acupuncture therapies and some other harmonizing effects that we have with some treatments for it. And as far as like the external, that is the way that we can measure external on the specific meridian lines along the jaw and along the mandible. And that's where we can, in the maxilla, and we are able to see specifically if there's some correlation of an too high or too low. And that frequency change is what we want to harmonize.
Got it. Got it. So tell me, you say things like harmonizing and bioenergy. I know you have a lot of different therapies in the office. So tell me a little bit about what are bioenergetic therapies and how do you use them? What are some examples that you have?
Yes. Okay. So whenever we reference bioenergetics, this is this energy system, and bio meaning we know that the system is dependent on the proper balance of these energies. So we can use like bioharmonics, and harmonics are a way that we can use some sound therapies, vibrational therapies, and electrical therapies, as well as light frequency therapies to stack various sequences of treatments that allow for the system to really harmonize that electrical frequency or harmonize that energetic pattern of movement. So whenever our system has this foundational element and it's imbalanced in the energetics, that any type of treatment pattern that has a frequency can help with balancing it as long as we match it with what would harmonize it. So we've all studied like the frequency patterns, and we just think of frequency as like a sinusoidal wave. It's like a wave pattern, just kind of like the waves on an ocean. And whenever that is in a specific pattern of frequency, then our own energy systems. It's hard for me to not to speak all the scientific terms here, but we have like microtubule frequencies within each of our cells, within our DNA itself, within our mitochondria. The mitochondria are the energy powerhouses within the cells, and that's what like emits ATP or energy molecules. And we also have like all these little light patterns that are activated within the cells. So this is every single cell in your body, the trillions of cells. Different types of cells are all activated by these energetics. So whenever we create a really beautiful undulating curve with that sinusoidal wave, that's whenever our system is able to harmonize and be in the perfect frequency. And that's our more optimal frequency. There's nothing that's actually at the level of perfection. We're always optimizing, just getting towards perfection. That's whenever functions are all able to really reset and have sustainable change. That's what we're constantly chasing within our practice, is what can we do to create an actual sustainable change so people aren't constantly chasing health, because we want to be just enjoying life to the fullest, living a blissful, peaceful, healthy, happy life, and have wellness as just a constant state of existence. And we maintain that wellness rather than chasing down health. And bioenergetics is the foundational element to allow our own bodies to heal, because the innate system knows exactly how to heal. The innate, we reference that, that's what we are born with. That's what's within our frequency. That's, the God-given, light-given type of space for our own system to heal. And as long as we get back to that perfect harmony and frequency and the energy that is already within us, it can heal from anything. It can regenerate from anything.
And that's really what we want. Like you said earlier, we want resilience, and we want to create a a space for patients to heal to
Yeah.
where they don't need us.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, I want you to tell us all about your practice. Where are you at right now?
Mhm.
Where is your practice located? I know you've been in your space not forever. I mean, not super recent, but it feels recent to me because time goes
Yes.
by fast. So tell me about your space and what you offer there and all the things that you do for your patients.
Yes. Well, I'm in Addison, Texas, and this is right in the suburbs of Dallas, so it's very easy location to get to. It is a beautiful location, beautiful practice. We are right on the Prestonwood Pond, and this is a lovely area where we have a gorgeous view of nature the entire time that patients are in our practice healing on therapies. They're creating that perfect space for that regeneration. It's lovely to be here. So we are so grateful for it. I actually found this location in July of 23, and I am expanding rapidly. We've taken on many suite spaces. We're actually taking on a third suite space as we're growing because we just have such a huge need for these therapies. So many patients are just absolutely raving about them and loving them and referring into these therapies. So that's what we're creating more space for that. And this is going to be one of those growth stages that will just continue to and continue in this Prestonwood area for quite a while, ideally. I do have a couple of retreats that I've been hosting, as well as we're looking into creating a few other like satellite clinics for some of these therapies. And we have those in a resort style model, and that will be in 2025 whenever those are rolling out. And that's just an opportunity to like disconnect from the hustle and the bustle and the stress that many people have in their life, and then just to go and check into a place where everything's accounted for, where they're provided with exactly the right types of foods and nourishment and the movement that they need, the lifestyle optimization, just like the space for the therapies where they can just really go and heal and then get back to their life in a much healthier state, much better state mentally. But as far as for right now, we still have this beautiful regenerative space here in Addison, and
A great
that's
space.
we
It's
love it.
really, really cool. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful office, beautiful environment, and I'm so glad you have room to grow because I'm
Yes.
excited for you to grow. Keep growing.
Thank you.
Tell me about, I didn't know that you were doing retreats. That
Yes.
are they still in planning phase or have you done one or two already?
Yeah, I've been hosting retreats for about 5 years now.
Oh, I
And
didn't realize that.
yeah, yes, we have, it's kind of on a speakeasy level because we have such a big need for them and a big desire to go into these retreats. And so at this point, because I'm really wanting to create an opportunity for our practice members who have shown up, they've done the work, they are ready for that, then we allow them to be invited into it. And we do have a wait list for it because I host them so far twice per year. And we usually go to an area. I love Arkansas because it's so gorgeous. The nature there is so stunning, such a beautiful place to get out and go hiking and get out on the river and go kayaking or river rafting and just being out in nature and experiencing the healing that's there. That is one of the most foundational ways that we really can have a full restorative system reset from the foundational level. What's deepest inside of us, our souls, that's where we're able to actually get in line with that and tune with that and harmonize that frequency of our souls. So I love that. And that's where I've been able to grow. And we so far allow up to 15 participants into our retreats. And that way we still keep it very small and very, it's a beautiful like community atmosphere whenever we're in these retreats. And so, yeah, I love
Oh,
it.
that's awesome. I love that. That sounds so
Yeah.
much fun. But we'll keep it a secret by invitation only. We won't tell
Yeah.
anybody other than those of you who are listening.
Yes, exactly. And I do have about once every other year, I host a Healing the Healers retreat. So for other practitioners who need to go and get some healing, That's a beautiful opportunity. And it's also, we do quite a bit of masterminding and mind melding and things like that to just inspire each other in our own paths and our own journeys and in our own wellness journey, because we have to take care of ourselves as well so we can give better to our practice members.
Absolutely. Okay. I know what'll be on my calendar next year.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's see. Really the only thing that we haven't talked about is um sleep apnea and breathing and airway. I know that you work with a lot of these patients. We share a lot of these patients as well. So tell me a little bit about craniofacial structure and how you see that related to sleep and breathing issues.
Oh, yes. So important. Foundational. Like our breathing, we always think about the breath and the oxygen that we're getting into our system as the foundation to all health systems. It is so important that we think about how is the air actually coming into our system? How is it coming in whenever we're subconscious, whenever we're no longer awake, and whenever we're supposed to be sleeping and regenerating, which is our most important time to heal? Then how is our system able to maintain optimal levels of that oxygen and just the breath in general? That's that parasympathetic stimulation that we need for rest, digest, regenerate. And so that is a very big opportunity that I have for speaking with my practice members about it. I definitely do within my exam check to see what their uvular rise is and see what their airway pattern looks like just from visual. But oftentimes I will ask many of our participants to come and see you for a cone beam scan. And that way we can make sure that we understand exactly what's going on. If there are any inflammatory areas within the mouth, then we know there's oftentimes going to be inflammation around the esophagus and around the windpipe. And this can affect the way that we are able to bring in breath. And we have to clear that. We have to make sure that we're going through the foundational elements to clear and open up the breathway patterns. And then also with the way that we have formed our maxilla throughout the years of us putting all these orthodontic work into kids way too young, there is a very big opportunity for us to rewrite these patterns, because I think that that needs to be a primary message for any of us functional practitioners who are working with families. I have that conversation very quickly with patients whenever the parents are interested in putting their kids in braces. I want to make sure that they know all of their different options to help with having a healthy mouth and having a healthy palate, and the roof of the mouth needs to have a strong enough and healthy enough structure as they're growing to be able to maintain optimal airways whenever they're as an adult. And so those are quite a few ways that I will lean into that, as well as with pediatrics. I have quite a few babies and in the practice, and they oftentimes I'll see in the exam that they'll have a tongue tie or lip tie or buccal tie. And that is something that I definitely want to refer directly to you so that you can check to see if it's something that we need to just monitor. Maybe we need to do fascial release work on some of the underlying contributing causes to why they have this form. Or let's go ahead and do this, like do the very gentle, delicate release, because you do the work with the laser, which I absolutely love. And then that's the opportunity for the mouth to heal better and for the baby then to grow up in a way where they have the best chance of really creating that proper, healthy roof of their mouth for the airway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like I'm fighting narrow palates from birth until they are no longer with us.
Yes.
A high and narrow palate, it just has so many ramifications for all areas of health, including oral health and the health of the fascia and the nervous system and all of these things. Um, your perspective will be different than mine. So I'm interested when you said that you're counseling parents around their kiddos as they get into that stage where they're considering orthodontic work. what do you see that you like, that you're like, oh, I'm so excited that you're pursuing this? And what do you see that you're concerned about? Like, oh, I wish you would slow down on this option and let's look
Mhm.
at other options.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think that that's the opportunity that I have to say, let's go to a biological dentist, an expert in this that has all of these options to lay out for you that can guide you on this best. I only know of a few from my perspective, and what I know is I don't want them to be in a very rigid type of brace where the braces that most orthodontics were putting in for so many years. And I know because I had braces when I was young. I was 16 to 18. So thank goodness it was whenever I was later in my growth cycle. Some they're getting braces at like 10, 11, 12. And so it's long before their mouths were formed properly. And so I think that that rigidity and that structure that prevents the growth, that is huge for issues with any health problems in the future.
Gotcha. Okay, so the rigid braces where it doesn't allow movement and doesn't allow proper growth.
Yes.
Um, it's are you a fan of expanders and expanding devices that help guide the growth of the palate?
Yes, I
Okay.
think as long as it's being guided, especially biological dentists, where we can have the check-ins and watch to see, and it's like going towards that optimal state of growth. I love that. I love that. And I think there's a huge need for correlation with the functional medicine component. So what I do in my practice is I address why is this a root cause? And I have seen over the past 7 years of practice where I've studied deeply into why is this happening so much more than it was happening 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I believe that there are specific epigenetic correlations that make us need specific activated nutrients more so. And it could be certain types of B vitamins that are methylated or hydroxylated in a specific way to where our bodies then are getting and receiving the proper nutrition that's already activated so we don't have that deficit. That is what is oftentimes associated with fascial issues. And for me, I see it with fascia throughout the entire body. So I'll see this correlated down the spine. I'm also a chiropractor. So I see whenever we have tightness and tension, and even in kids that are 7 or 8 years old, like these massive trigger points in their traps, this should not be happening. And so oftentimes what we do is we'll make sure that those epigenetic factors and nutrient patterns are addressed. And then the fascia is able to be more relaxed. The lymphatic system is able to flow throughout the extracellular matrix and the fascia patterns, and under the fascia that causes the adhesions, the tension points, the stickiness in the fascia. Sorry, I got into quite a few sciencey words right there. Trying
Love
to
it. I love it. Our
okay.
audience will love it. It'll be good.
But yeah, it's about making sure that we're addressing what's the root cause. And I do a lot of fertility planning and epigenetic optimization in couples before they conceive, so that by the time that we're walking the mother through pregnancy, we have everything set up for success for not having these fascial issues that are like tongue tie, lip tie, buccal tie associated. And it's amazing because at this point now, being in practice for 7 years, I've been able to see enough of these mamas go through this that we so often are able to reduce the chances of having these structural issues. And also, these are the healthiest babies neurologically. They're crossing their milestones so quickly. They're so smart, so brilliant, because we just set them up for success nutritionally from the foundation.
Um, I have some of my referring practitioners who have concerns with, again, we all have the same goal. We
Mhm.
all want not just our adult patients, but especially our kiddos, especially our
Yeah.
babies, our little ones, uh, just to have every chance for success as they
Yeah.
grow. So we all share the same goals.
Mhm.
Um, I have some who really get nervous about putting metal in a kid's mouth and I don't know if I have an answer. Maybe you have an answer for it. They love the idea of guiding a child's growth and helping expand their palate, but they say the downside is the metal in the mouth blocks cerebral spinal fluid and blocks the flow of energy.
Yeah.
Blocks a lot going on in the mouth. So do you see that too from your
Yes.
perspective? And do you have any answers? Because I sure don't on what we do about it.
Yes. Yes, I do. And I really just want nothing foreign to be in the body. Really, just like whenever we think about that, I would love for us to be able to go at this natural route. And that is very difficult as I say that. So what we would say is if we can have a child eating a very, very wide diversity of food, and they're eating all these root vegetables and all these fibrous vegetables and all these things that require lots of chewing, even like chewing on steak or whatever it is. And they eat such a huge diversity of different types of fibrous substances that they're probably forming their own palate because it's a lot of those muscles working, like the myomunchi is part of that. Like it grows and supports that proper temporomandibular TMJ like joint function and all of these little muscles that help to form that palate optimally. So that would absolutely be my first choice if that's an option. But that's only an option if it's a very mild case and if their palate is only just a little bit needing just a little bit of optimization and it's just a little off from what optimal is, then great, let's try that and let's lean into that. But there also are many complex cases that I've had referred to me, and it's oftentimes the epigenetic foundation, the nutrients deficiencies. These are most often the kids where their brains just are not, they're very picky. They're picky eaters because their brains are not allowing for sensory diversity. And so they just refuse to eat anything besides mashed potatoes and I don't know, like pizza. And so, yeah, the problem is that for that child, there really isn't hope of us like expanding their palate any other way. And I don't know of any other types of devices out there yet. I believe that we absolutely will, hopefully, in society, develop something quickly, very soon. And I'm hoping that there is some company out there already working on something. But it's just we have to decide what's the lesser of the evils. And once their palate has already formed to a certain extent, then it's very difficult to go back and, all those years that we could have created some incredible and beautiful space for that will be optimized for the rest of their life so that their cerebrospinal fluid has a better chance of that proper healthy flow and they're getting oxygen to their brain and to the organs like they need to and everything else is in better place. Then we have to say, is this what will help put us on that trajectory for it? And is this the lesser of the two evils? And at least maybe this can be what gets us from point A to point G. And then from there, we take it the rest of the way in a more natural way.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Is there anything that you can do while a child has these unfortunate, necessary foreign bodies in their mouth? Is there
Yes,
anything
definitely.
that you can do or you can help them do to restore that flow or at least improve the flow and optimize their results when they do have braces?
Yes, actually, craniosacral therapy is one of the most important types of treatment therapies during this time because this is where we can adjust the 22 different cranial bones that are around the brain. And this is where we also are able to create space for that cerebrospinal fluid to flow up and down and around the brain properly and optimally. And that helps to create that healthy process for it. And just creating that type of a therapy sequence behind the scenes while they're also getting their palates elevated or strengthened and supported and expanded and optimized, then that's going to be the perfect correlation. There's also, if they're having any functional neurology types of aversions to it, or if their system just isn't receiving it well, and maybe their nervous system isn't as regulated of a level, then there are certain types of therapies that we can do for them to help treat and support their nervous systems. And we can activate those cranial nerves and support that harmony and that balance and that communication in the brain.
Very cool. Cool. Oh, I love that. Awesome. Okay. Well, Dr. Doolittle, I thank you so much for hanging out with us this afternoon, for sharing so much knowledge and so much wisdom that you have. Thank you for the heart that you have for your patients and for your tribe of people. As we close up, we'll make sure to put links to your website and to all of your programs in the show notes. But before we close, do you have any parting words of wisdom for our audience?
Oh, just it starts with this foundation of knowing that your body knows exactly how to heal, trusting that, and feeling that alignment with that self-love, that love for how capable your body is of recovering and of healing and of creating resilience to anything in the world that your system doesn't need. You know that your body is capable, and feeling that confidence and that self-love and that self-respect, that is by far the most important element of healing.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, dear. I so appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you next week for
Ah,
my appointment in your office.
all right, folks. Thanks so much. Bye for now. We'll catch you next time.